Photographers who do school picture days, what are your most cringe-worthy/strange stories of your career? Wow, post I actually have experience in. Guess there won't be a better time to stop lurking than now. Here's a couple of my favorite stories. A preschool kid was particularly difficult to get a good picture out of. Really cute kid, but just couldn't get a good smile. After about 20 attempts, finally he just kinda relaxes, looks off into the distance behind me with this awesome natural smile. It wasn't until he got off the stool and walked away that I noticed a stain on the back of his shorts and a terrible smell of feces. Still kept the pic. Apparently nothing made this kid smile like a good shit. On a middle school registration day shoot, some kid comes up wearing a Naruto headband. I asked him to take it off, and he told me he wore it for religious purposes. I knew perfectly well he was bullshitting me, but I didn't feel like making it a big deal. I just told him he'd probably regret it in a couple years, and snapped the pic anyway. One time there were identical twins wearing the same outfit. Let's call them Doug and Jeff. I had to take a couple shots of Doug, and then just one of Jeff. Ended up accidentally deleting the pic of Jeff, so I just relabeled one of Doug's pics as Jeff. One day my coworkers and I were at a shoot and needed to get our lunch out of the car. We accidentally triggered an emergency alarm, and when school staff showed up we said it was a kid and that we sent him back to class without remembering to take down his name. Two of my male coworkers would always try their hardest to be the one to photograph the attractive teachers. It evolved to the point of literally sabotaging each other's equipment, unplugging lights, moving stools, etc. As the lead photographer, I had to reluctantly end this warfare. Female teachers all say the exact same things when sitting down for a picture. My coworkers and I would bet which ones we would hear first. Here are some examples. Can you Photoshop 10 pounds off of me? How many years does this camera take away? Do you guys have a hair and makeup team? This was about as annoying as when every adult says remind me to stay off the road when you get your license. A guy at my school demanded to have a picture of him with a Microsoft painted spacesuit on as his senior photo, but the teachers wouldn't let him. So he paid extra to have himself as an ad in the final part of the yearbook with a photo of him in a spacesuit. We were doing photos at a special needs high school. Guy comes up in a windbreaker, corduroy high water pants, velcro tennis shoes and the thickest glasses I've ever seen. I asked him whose class he was in so I could make sure he was in the right group, and he said he wasn't a student, he worked there. I was photographing a 3rd grade class and I got to an adorable little boy and went through my list of instructions. Now turn your head here, shoulders here, oopsie, your right arm there. Wait, please move your right arm. He gave me the saddest little look and showed me the stub on his right shoulder. He had no right arm. I felt like a terrible person. I'll try to remember some stories later, but there was one shoot I'll never forget. First off, we were expected to do 3 sets of pictures for each student. One for the yearbook, tux for boys, drape for girls, one for cap and gown, and one set of casuals. Casuals usually involved hand poses with a table we'd bring, and some cutesy stuff, like holding a rose up to your shoulder, or like full body pictures meant to show off their clothes. So a girl comes in, she looks out of it, like really not connected to the world. I take the yearbook pics, I take the cap and gown. All the while her smiles are so obviously faked, and her eyes are just gone. It's okay, I was used to dealing with students who didn't want their picture taken. I'm pretty good at loosening them up and making them laugh, but she was barely paying attention to me. She seemed really distracted. I tell her to change into her regular clothes, to take her casuals, and she's like okay or monotone. She comes back and has huge bandages on her arms. Clearly this poor girl had tried to kill herself rather recently and was just taking these pictures out of obligation or something. Every casual photo I'd take of her would have those bandages and there would be no mistaking why they were there. Instead of taking them and having them show up in the proofs that would go out to the parents, I tell her, okay, you're good, thanks for coming. And she just shrugs and leaves, just as apathetic as before. This was like 6 years ago, and I still think about her sometimes, and I hope she's happy now. Guy at my school had a reverse mohawk, which is where you shave a line down the middle. The photographer actually asked him if he'd like to wear a hat. When I was having my graduation portrait taken, The photographer pulled me aside afterwards and for like 30 minutes was talking about all this new Photoshop and airbrush techniques they could do now. I played along, being polite. I didn't really care, but he seemed super hyped about it and how cool it was. Turns out it was his subtle way of asking me what I thought if he airbrushed out my pimples. I had pretty awful acne at the time. Like, holy shit, Lunar Lander couldn't find a decent spot to put down in. He eventually gave up, and I left thinking to myself how weird that dude was. I got the pictures a few weeks later. He did a good job and completely airbrushed everything out. I showed my dad, who took one look and said, "Who the fuck is that?" Photographed a class of 1 and 2-year-olds. I mostly did preschool. Their teacher had written herself thank you notes, as if they were coming from the pre-verbal children. Like, "Dear milliseconds. Judy, thank you for changing my diaper. Dear milliseconds. Judy, thank you for giving me snacks every day." She had written one for every kid and hung them up all over her wall. Later, as I was trying to navigate my tripod through a hallway, she felt I was in her way and threatened to bash my face in with a door. It was for a middle school. There was this young lady having her portraits done. She wasn't doing anything bad in hindsight. She was just very well developed for her age, and the shirt she was wearing had a little cleavage. I'm sure her parents sent her out of the house just fine, and she probably felt very pretty and confident. Young lady, having photos done, no big deal. Class portrait time. Out of nowhere, this middle-aged female school administrator comes up to her. She yanks her out of the photo and chastises her for her outfit. Then she makes her wear this oversized baggy t-shirt, and we redo the photo. I can only imagine what this girl was going through. I did senior portraits, and this really nerdy looking kid wanted photos with his 2 samurai swords. I tried my best to make it look cool, but I just couldn't. Another senior did couples photos with her boyfriend. They specifically earnestly requested a pose where the girl posed all cute on one side of the couch, while the boy sat on the other side of the couch, staring at her while stroking his beard. That one didn't turn out well either. I worked for a company that did this. Didn't work there long, but the worst thing I encountered was multiple notes on the forms parents sent back to us saying, "Don't make my child smile," or "They have a bad smile, don't make them smile." How terrible is it to tell strangers you hate your child's smile? I understand some didn't want big toothy grins because they were missing teeth, but that's part of childhood. They'll never be like that again. Why not enjoy it? Can we do funny? When I was a school photographer, to amuse myself I tried to give each kid in class a unique word to say. Fuzzy puppies, funky monkeys, etc, etc. So I get this little girl at my chair. She's got the thickest glasses I've seen, an overbite, and is pale as a vampire. But whatever. A kid is a kid. So I say, "Okay, say fuzzy kitties," and she gives me the most irritated look I've ever seen. In allergic to kitties. Like it was the dumbest thing anyone had ever said to her, and she felt sorry for how dumb I was. The photographer who did my senior photos told me the weirdest request she had gotten so far that year was a girl who very specifically wanted just one arm photoshopped to be especially thin. It ended up being a girl in my class, and I noticed the second I saw her picture in the yearbook. She was a bigger girl, so she had one chubby arm and one very skinny twig-like arm. She didn't seem to notice how weird it was. She was one of the more popular girls, so of course everyone looked at her picture and noticed. She had no clue. She only focused on the arm that was closer to the camera. I was torn between feeling bad and wanting to laugh hysterically. I chose both. In his freshman year, my brother, a white dude, switched his picture card with a nation friend of his. They figured that the picture guy would notice that it was weird that a white guy would have an obviously Chinese name, and they would tell them to switch back. Nope. For the rest of his time in high school, on every form and computer system, my brother was an Asian guy. Confused the hell out of substitute teachers. I'm not a photographer, but I probably gave the one who took my second grade school photo a weird feeling. I'd just moved from a third world country and didn't speak a lick of English. I had no idea what a soda can was, much less the hallowed tradition of picture day. So when my class was directed to shuffle down the hall in an orderly line to the gym, and I saw all those abstracty bluish background canvases that looked like X-ray images all over the gym, and that we were all going towards a spot directly in front of it, one at a time, in this solemn fashion, I thought we were all, one by one, having a medical procedure done to us. And that's why I look a little teary and very stoic in my second grade photo. When I was 16, I was recovering from a serious illness that left me partially blind and very sensitive to light, so I wore those big old lady cataract sunglasses all the time. Picture day, sat down for my photo, and the photographer says, "How about you take off those glasses, superstar? You don't look cool." I said, "I can't, I need them," and he replied, "You don't need them. You just think you look good in those." My soccer coach came over and let him know exactly where he went wrong, while I sat in the photo chair trying not to cry. Edit. For everyone asking, I had acanthamoeba keratitis. Also, I'm a girl, not a boy. Being a young female photographer, probably having to photograph male high school seniors is the most awkward. I've been asked out on dates, hit on, winked at, and straight up had any and all requests for them to smile nicely, stop goofing around, or take their hat off ignored. When I was in grade school, a photographer kept telling me to open my eyes, even though my eyes were open. I didn't know any better, so I was struggling to open them super wide while having a smile. Now that I'm older, I feel like he was just making a racist remarks in summation. So I'm in kindergarten getting my picture taken. 1980. The flash bulb pops and explodes, catches that umbrella thing on fire. All the teachers scream, and I shit my pants. Awkward when I get picked up by mom wearing underoos and holding a plastic bag. But the teacher said I was brave. Simpler times. Spent 15 minutes with a guy because he blinked every time I took the photo. I tried everything in my book, making him close and open his eyes before snapping the picture, delaying the flash, shooting without flash, taking the picture while talking to him so he'll be distracted. Nothing worked. Ended up taking his picture with a cell phone because apparently what made him close his eyes was the shutter/mirror sound. Some kid showed up in a fursuit, like full-on fursuit, a bright blue fox, and he ended up having a half-hour-long argument with the photographer and assistant principal over it. Years ago I traveled the SE states shooting family portraits, but mostly kids. I was in the middle of a shoot with a 4 years old boy and used my standard phrase for "smile, say fuzzy pickles," which normally worked. This time, however, the kid misunderstood and in front of everyone said, "Fucking pickles." Cringe-worthy. I asked a 4th grader if she hurt her foot. I have a prosthetic leg. She was wearing sandals and sure enough, rubber foot. I asked a 7th grader to sit up straight. Spinal problems. His doctor bought a copy of the photo as a before shot for a textbook he was writing. Whatever the doctor did, it worked like a charm. A kid told my assistant that they ate their pet rabbit the night before. I asked a kid to sit down. He sat down on the floor. I told him, "Not on the floor, on the chair. Please point your knees at the computer." He got up and touched his knee to the computer. I said, "No, sit on the chair and turn your knees, point them at the computer." I asked a kid if they wanted their hoodie to be in the picture. "No." "Okay, take your hoodie off." "No." "Do you want your hoodie in the picture?" "No." If you don't want your hoodie to be in the picture, you have to take it off, or it will be in the picture. "Oh, I want my hoodie in the picture." I tapped a kid on the shoulder from behind and asked where the teacher was. She was the teacher, and I had known her for almost 20 years by that point. Asked a teacher if a severely disabled student could sit by themselves on the bench. The student couldn't, and there was a pretty hard thump on the gym floor.